Your garden violates HOA rules. Stop the water!
Have you ever met someone who thinks they run the whole neighborhood just because they've got a clipboard and an attitude? Well, let me tell you about Karen. The woman who pretended to be on the HOA board, tried to destroy my garden, and ended up learning that karma blooms brighter than roses. You won't believe how this story unfolds. Before I start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? When I first moved into my new neighborhood, all I wanted was peace. A quiet street. A little patch of green where I could grow my tomatoes, some herbs, and maybe a few roses. After years of apartment living, this house was my sanctuary. The smell of soil in the morning, the sound of bees buzzing in the afternoon. It was therapy. But apparently, not everyone in suburbia enjoys happiness that isn't their own. Because one morning, taped right to my mailbox, was a bright orange violation notice. Big letters, bold print. Your garden is not compliant with HOA landscaping guidelines. Signed, Head of Landscaping Committee, Karen P. Now, I had read that HOA handbook cover to cover before planting a single seed. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, about unauthorized flower beds. So I frowned, peeled off the notice, and thought, okay, maybe it's a mistake. Spoiler, it wasn't a mistake. The very next day, I heard heels clicking down my driveway. And there she was. Karen. Mid-50s, oversized sunglasses, holding a manila folder like it was a badge of authority. You'll need to remove those plants, she said, crossing her arms. They clash with the neighborhood's aesthetic. I blinked. The aesthetic? Yes, she said, chin raised. We like things uniform. The HOA won't tolerate this mess. She gestured toward my roses like they'd personally offended her. Now, I'm not someone who picks fights. But when someone insults your garden, your peace, you feel it. Still, I kept calm. Could you show me where in the bylaws it says that? I asked. Karen waved her folder like she was warding off a vampire. You don't need to see it, she said. I make the rules here. That line right there, that was my red flag. I make the rules here? Lady, this isn't Monopoly. So that evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and emailed the actual HOA board. Just a polite note. Hi there. Could you please confirm whether Karen P. is on the landscaping committee? The next morning, I got a reply, and when I opened it, I had to read it twice. We have no record of a Karen P. on our board, or any official committee. Please forward any communication you've received. My jaw dropped. Turns out Karen wasn't just overstepping. She wasn't anything official. No title, no committee, no authority. But she sure acted like she did. The HOA rep told me they'd received other complaints too. Neighbors saying Karen had been handing out fines, issuing warnings, and even collecting fees in cash. She'd been running a one-woman scam right under everyone's nose. So what did I do? I printed the emails, slipped them in a folder, and walked straight to Karen's house. She opened the door, all smug confidence, until she saw what was in my hands. Karen, I said, holding up the papers, you might want to explain this before I send it to the real HOA and the police. Her face went pale so fast, I thought she might faint. You wouldn't, she stammered. Oh, I would, I said, turning to leave. And I did. Within a week, an official statement went out from the HOA. Karen P. was banned from attending any HOA meetings, permanently. The board issued a community-wide apology, refunded every neighbor she'd conned, and launched a full review of their internal communications. And as for me, my little garden, the one she called a mess, it got featured in the next HOA newsletter as the model for approved landscaping. A week later, the board even put up a small sign at the corner of my yard. HOA approved garden. Big, bold letters. Now, every morning I water my roses and see Karen walking her dog. She glances at that sign and looks away so fast it's like it burns her. I always wave. She never waves back. But that's okay. Because the roses are blooming beautifully. And so is karma. For a few peaceful weeks, life was good. My garden was thriving. The tomatoes were heavy on the vines. The rosemary had taken over one corner like it owned the place. And the roses? They were stunning. Full bloom, deep red, the kind of color that made you stop and just stare. And every morning, I'd see Karen walking her dog past my house. She'd glance at that big HOA approved garden sign. Pretend she didn't notice me waving, and scurry away like a cat that got caught on the counter. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But people like Karen, they don't let things go. They lie low, wait for the right moment, and then come back swinging. One morning I stepped outside with my coffee and froze. The rose bushes were ruined. Not a little trimmed. Hacked. Like someone had taken out every bit of frustration they had with a pair of garden shears. I stood there, in disbelief, heart pounding. Then I remembered the little doorbell camera I'd installed after her last stunt. I scrolled through the footage, and there she was. Karen, in her pink jogging suit, hair up in a bun, looking around before sneaking into my yard at dawn. She clipped, she yanked, she even kicked one of my pots over. And when she left, she smiled. Oh, that smile. It told me everything. She wasn't done. She was angry. I didn't confront her this time. I was done arguing. Instead, I gathered the video, took screenshots, and sent them straight to the HOA board with a short message. Thought you might want to see what your former landscaping chair has been up to. The response came that same afternoon. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll take appropriate action. Apparently, appropriate action meant a formal notice, a warning, and a reminder that stepping onto another homeowner's property without permission counted as trespassing. But did that stop her? Of course not. A week later, an anonymous flyer appeared in everyone's mailboxes. Overgrown gardens attract pests. Please report non-compliant homes to your HOA representative. No signature, but I knew that font. It was her. Karen was trying to turn the whole neighborhood against me. Only this time, no one bought it. Because guess what? People had started talking. Turns out, I wasn't her only target. The Wilsons down the street told me she'd once tried to fine them for having a blue mailbox. The Jenkins said she called their Halloween decorations unacceptable displays. She'd been meddling with everyone, and now her cover was blown. So instead of arguing, I got creative. I hosted a little event in my backyard. Community Garden Day. Homemade lemonade, cookies, and an open invitation to come see what approved landscaping looked like. Nearly the whole neighborhood showed up. Even the HOA president came, shaking hands and admiring the flowers. Kids played in the grass. People asked for rose cuttings, and laughter filled the air. Then, of course, Karen showed up. She stood at the edge of the crowd, tight smile, arms crossed. "Oh," she said, "hosting a public event without HOA clearance? Bold move." I smiled back. "Actually, the HOA helped organize it. Want some lemonade?" Her jaw tightened. And that's when the president walked up beside me, holding a cup of lemonade. "Karen," he said, "we were just discussing your recent gardening activities." Her fake smile vanished. The president nodded toward me. "We've reviewed the footage. You'll be receiving an official notice from the board, and possibly the police if it happens again." Karen's face drained of color. People nearby started whispering. She mumbled something about misunderstandings and marched off, her dog trotting behind her. After that day, the neighborhood changed. Everyone started standing up for themselves. The Wilsons repainted their mailbox bright red. The Jenkins added even more Halloween decorations the next year. It was like the whole community had woken up from Karen's spell. And me? I got an email from the HOA president a few weeks later. "Would you be interested in joining the landscaping committee?" I laughed out loud, reading it. So, yes, I joined. She didn't speak until halfway through when she raised her hand and said, "I'd like to file a complaint. Certain people have been spreading falsehoods about me." The room went dead silent. Then the president replied, calm but sharp. "Falsehoods? You mean when you impersonated us, forged letters, and trespassed onto private property?" Her face turned the color of a tomato. Someone coughed to hide a laugh. Karen muttered something about being misunderstood and stormed out before the meeting ended. That was the last time we saw her at any HOA event. 2 months later, a moving truck appeared in her driveway. She'd sold the house. And when the new owners moved in, a young couple with 2 little kids, they turned her perfectly trimmed, soulless front lawn into a butterfly garden. Wildflowers everywhere, monarchs fluttering in the air, bees, sunlight, color. It was beautiful. The next HOA newsletter came out with a headline, New community pollinator garden, located at the former P residence. When I saw the picture of her old yard bursting with color, I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. I walked outside, looked at my roses swaying in the breeze, and whispered, "Well, Karen, looks like nature wins again." The best part? Every time I walk by that butterfly garden now, I smile, knowing that the same ground she used to control has become a symbol of growth, freedom, and peace. The weeds were gone. The flowers took over. And for once, karma didn't just bloom. It blossomed. Weeks passed, and peace finally felt real again. The neighborhood had changed, not in some dramatic movie-style way, but in small, human ways. People started chatting more, smiling when they passed each other. Kids played hopscotch on the sidewalks again without anyone complaining about noise levels. It felt lighter. My garden kept growing. Every morning, I walk out barefoot onto the grass, coffee in hand, and listen to the soft hum of bees around the roses. Sometimes, I see neighbors tending to their own flowers now, inspired maybe by what had happened, or maybe just reminded that life's too short to live under someone else's fake authority. And though no one said it out loud, we all knew that Karen had left her mark, and not in the way she intended. Her name had become a sort of neighborhood legend, not the good kind. Occasionally, someone would joke, "Careful, the spirit of Karen might see that unapproved garden gnome," and everyone would laugh. But one chilly autumn morning, something strange happened again. I opened my mailbox and saw an envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Enjoy your garden while you can. Some of us have higher standards." No signature, but that same familiar handwriting. Sharp, slanted, self-important. Karen's. I couldn't help but laugh. Even from miles away, she was still trying to play puppet. Master. I showed the letter to the HOA president later that day. He rolled his eyes. "She's been emailing us too. New address in another neighborhood. Apparently, they don't appreciate her ideas." We both laughed. I told him, "Sounds like someone's flowers still haven't bloomed." After that, I stopped thinking about her much. She'd become a story, a whisper, a warning of what happens when control becomes obsession. Life went on beautifully. The butterfly garden down the street flourished. Every summer it exploded into color, drawing people from other neighborhoods to visit. Kids would chase butterflies through it, laughing, and their parents would sit on benches talking like old friends. My own roses grew taller than ever that year. One evening, I noticed something poetic. Their roots had started creeping toward the fence line, intertwining with the wildflowers from the butterfly garden. Two gardens, once separated by bitterness, now growing together. It made me think about how nature always finds balance, even after chaos. Months later, the HOA asked me to speak at a small community gathering about neighborhood harmony. I almost said no. I'm not the speech-giving type. But then I thought of that first day. The orange violation notice. The fake authority. The fear that I'd done something wrong just for planting a few flowers. So I stood up there in front of my neighbors, holding a small potted rose in my hands, and said, "You know, a garden doesn't bloom because someone gives it permission. It blooms because it's nurtured, cared for, and given light. And neighborhoods are the same way. We all just want to grow in peace. But sometimes it takes a little conflict to remind us that the best rules are kindness and respect." The room was quiet for a moment, then someone started clapping. Then, everyone did. And for the first time since moving there, I realized it wasn't just my house anymore. It was home. After the meeting, a little girl from next door came up and handed me a daisy she'd picked from her yard. She said, "I'm starting my own garden, like yours." I smiled and told her, "Just remember, flowers don't care about rules. They care about love." As the seasons changed, the roses kept blooming. Every year, brighter, fuller, like they were telling me they remembered everything that had happened, and that they forgave it all. And sometimes, when the evening light hits them just right, I think back to Karen. Maybe she's out there somewhere, still trying to control everything. Maybe not. Either way, I hope one day she plants something too. Something real. Something she doesn't fake, or own, or dictate. Just tends to, patiently, Because that's the funny thing about life. The more you try to control others, the less you grow yourself. But the moment you let things bloom on their own, beauty takes care of the rest. So now, when I walk through the neighborhood, past the butterfly garden and the laughing children, past my roses swaying under the sun, I whisper to myself, this is how peace grows. And it's true, because every petal, every leaf, every bee buzzing in the air is proof that karma doesn't come crashing down. It blooms quietly, beautifully, and right where it's meant to. The next spring arrived like a promise. Morning sunlight spilled over the rooftops, and the air smelled of dew and new beginnings. The butterfly garden down the street had become the heart of the neighborhood. Families brought blankets, children chased monarchs, and neighbors who barely spoke before now shared gardening tips like old friends. It felt like the world had softened. One morning, I was pruning the roses when a car pulled up near the old P residence. A woman stepped out, mid-50s, familiar posture, same oversized sunglasses. Karen. I froze. She stood there for a long moment, looking at the butterfly garden that now covered her old yard. The wildflowers were in full bloom. Purple coneflowers, yellow daisies, orange milkweed waving in the wind. She didn't move closer, didn't say anything, just stared. Then, to my surprise, she crouched down near the fence line. A small child, maybe her granddaughter, ran up behind her, holding a dandelion. Karen smiled softly, helped her blow the seeds, and, for the briefest second, she didn't look like that Karen anymore. Just someone who finally saw beauty she couldn't control. I didn't interrupt. I just watched quietly from my garden as she stood, brushed the dirt from her hands, and walked back to her car. Before she left, she glanced toward my house. Our eyes met for just a heartbeat. No anger, no smugness, just something like understanding. And then she was gone. That evening, I sat on my porch, sipping tea, as the sky turned gold. The air was thick with the scent of roses, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear kids laughing near the butterfly garden. I thought about how much had changed, how much we'd all grown. It's funny how conflict can become compost if you let it. It breaks things down, sure, but it also feeds the roots for something stronger to grow. By summer, the HOA had started a new program called Neighbors in Bloom, inspired by our gardens. Each month, they celebrated a different home for creativity, community, and kindness, not perfection. People started painting their fences bright colors, planting pollinator beds, and turning front lawns into mini sanctuaries. The whole neighborhood began to feel alive again. One afternoon, I hosted another garden day. Only this time, it wasn't about proving anything. It was about joy. Music played softly. Kids painted flower pots. And the same little girl who gave me a daisy last year brought over her first potted marigold. "This one's for you," she said proudly. "It's not perfect, but I made it myself." I smiled. That's exactly what makes it perfect. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I walked through my garden under the soft glow of string lights. The roses shimmered in the moonlight, and the wind carried whispers through the leaves. I swear I could almost hear the earth sigh in contentment. I sat on the edge of the flower bed and thought about everything that had happened. Every warning notice, every argument, every moment that tried to steal my peace. And I realized something. It was never really about the garden. It was about boundaries, learning when to stand firm and when to let go. About growth. Mine, my neighbors, even Karen's in her own way. Because peace isn't the absence of people like her. It's the ability to keep blooming despite them. Months later, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Again. For a second, my heart sank. Another Karen letter, I thought. But when I opened it, there was just a postcard. A photo of a sunflower field. On the back, in that same slanted handwriting, it said, "Planted these last month. Thought you'd appreciate them." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Maybe it was her way of saying sorry, maybe not. But either way, it meant something. It meant she'd finally planted something real, and that to me was enough. As seasons passed, the gardens, mine, the butterfly one, and all the little ones scattered across the neighborhood, became a kind of living story. Every petal, every patch of green whispered the same lesson. You can't fake roots. They take time, care, and a little faith. Sometimes I walk through the neighborhood just to see what's new. A vine creeping up a fence here, a bird bath there, a patch of clover overtaking a front lawn. Each one tells me the same thing. Life grows best when you stop trying to control it. And every now and then, when I see a sunflower swaying in the wind, I think of Karen, of how she tried to dictate beauty and ended up learning from it instead. I don't hate her. In some strange way, I'm grateful. Because if she hadn't tried to destroy my garden, I might never have realized how strong it and I really were. Now, when I water my roses, I whisper a quiet thank you. Not to her, but to the lesson. Because growth isn't just about flowers. It's about patience, forgiveness, and the courage to bloom even when someone tries to cut you down. And as I watch the sunset spill gold across the petals, I smile and think, this is how peace grows. Not through rules or revenge, but through roots that go deep and hearts that stay open. Because in the end, nature always wins. And sometimes, so does karma. Quietly, beautifully, one flower at a time. Flower at a